For today's video, I'm going to be doing the first NHL over or underpaid video on my channel. You guys know I do the agree or disagrees, the over and under point totals, the deal or no deals. All those videos are interactive and you guys can get your comments featured in a video, and that is going to be the same thing with this one. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make this into a series because I feel like it could get pretty repetitive rather fast, but I feel like for one video at least it would definitely be fun to do. So on my community tab about 10 hours ago, I posted with all the money being thrown around and players signing big deals. I'm going to be doing a video tomorrow called NHL Overpaid or Underpaid. You guys give me a player in the comments for a chance to be featured in the video, and then I will say if I think that player is overpaid, underpaid, or just right. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video with the first comment. Starting the video off with a comment from Tariq Kudos. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, but they say Draisaitl at 8 years, $8.5 million, and honestly at the time he signed this contract, I think a lot of people did say it was a little bit of an overpayment and it was premature to give him such a lucrative deal, but this past season Leon Draisaitl showed that he is worth that and more. He had 105 points, 50 goals. Him and Ovechkin were the only players in the league to crack 50 this past season, and he really just had a phenomenal year. And when you consider what some other people are getting, you know, the $10 million contracts, the $9 million that Jeff Skinner got, I think this deal for Leon Draisaitl is actually a steal for Edmonton, so I'm going to go ahead and say he's underpaid. Moving along now, we have a comment from Go Leafs Go, TML for the Cup, who says Nylander. And Nylander makes around $6.962 million per season. And honestly, I'm going to come right out and say I think this is a fair contract. I don't think it's overpaid, and I don't think he is an underpaid player either. Because you have to remember, he was a back-to-back 60-point guy. And I know everybody is going to have a recency bias on William Nylander and point to last season where he wasn't very good. But obviously, he wasn't going to be very good. He wasn't around the team whatsoever. He wasn't at training camp, preseason, any of that, or even around for the first half of the year. So obviously he's not just going to come right in and be that 60-point player that he was in the previous two seasons. So honestly, I think of last year for William Nylander as sort of just a throwaway. I don't even look too much into it. He changed his number, he dominated the World Championships. I think he's in for a monster year. I believe that he's skating with Andreas Johnsson and Austin Matthews at training camp, so if that is a line heading into next season, I definitely think all three of those guys will put up a good number of points, and yeah, I think this is a fair contract for William Nylander. Next up, we have a comment from FishStick who says David Pastrnak, and this is definitely a pretty easy one. Pasta is extremely underpaid. He makes $6.666.666 million through the 2022-23 season, and then at the end of that year he will become a UFA, and considering what he brings to the table for this Boston team, that is an extreme bargain. He had 81 points last year in just 66 games. I've said this on the channel before, I'll say it again, I think he can score 50. I think he can be a player that puts up 100 plus points. In my opinion, he is one of the best wingers in the entire NHL, and Boston has to be extremely happy that they have him locked up long term on such an amazing contract. Next up, we have a comment from generic YouTube viewer who says Jeff Skinner, and I love Jeff Skinner. He had an amazing season with Buffalo, 40 goals for the first time in his career, 60 plus points. But that $9 million is definitely a little bit of an overpayment, but if he did hit the open market, he probably would have got offered around that from some teams that are, you know, desperate to bring in a scoring winger. So I'm not really mad at Buffalo, and I'm not really mad at Jeff Skinner either. It's not like he's extremely overpaid, but for a player that's like a 60-point guy, I definitely think he should be in like the $7.5 to $8 million range. But if he can consistently score 40 goals for Buffalo and play as well as he did this past season, then yes, this contract isn't really that bad. But definitely, in my opinion, he is overpaid by about $1 million. Moving on now, we have a comment from William Black who says Max Pacioretty, and Max Pacioretty is under contract with a cap hit of $7 million through the 2022-23 season. He will then become a UFA at the end of that year, but in my opinion, this is a fair contract for what Max Pacioretty can bring to this Vegas team. Last year, 66 games, he had 22 goals and 18 assists for 40 points. Not the greatest year for Max Pacioretty, but if he can consistently be like a 60-point guy and a player who gives you like 30 plus goals, then I think this is a fair contract. And I think that is definitely an achievable point mark for Max Pacioretty consistently over the course of this contract with Vegas, because you have to consider he's going to be playing with some talented guys. He's going to get a lot of power play minutes and just put in a lot of opportunities to succeed with Vegas. He just had a hat trick yesterday in a preseason game, so shout out to him. Hopefully he is ready to have a big year because he's definitely capable of it. Next up, we have a comment from the Kevin Joe Show. They have a YouTube channel. Make sure to go check it out. out, but they say Kevin Hayes at 7 years, $7.1 million. I touched on this a little bit earlier, and that is definitely an overpayment. This is a guy who has never cracked 60 points in his career. Yes, he was good, last season, split between the Winnipeg Jets and the New York Rangers, but he's not a $7 million player. Like Max Pacioretty makes $7 million. Max Pacioretty, in my opinion, is a lot better. I would much rather have him on my team, even though he's a little bit older. David Pastrnak makes less than that. Guys like Dylan Larkin. It's just really crazy to think how much Kevin Hayes got paid for not being really a proven player just yet. But you never know. Maybe this could turn out to be a solid contract. And I'm not hating on Kevin Hayes. I think he is a solid player and definitely should help Philadelphia, but that is definitely an overpayment for what type of player he is. Next up, we have a comment from Bingo Fuel who says Ekblad. And Aaron Ekblad is under contract with a cap hit of $7.5 million through the 2024-25 season. He will then become a UFA at the end of that year, but in my opinion, this is a fair contract for Aaron Ekblad. You see a lot of defensemen around the league being paid right now in a big way, and Aaron Ekblad is already locked up long term, and he is very solid. A former #1 overall pick, has yet to crack 40 points over the course of his career, but he has been a solid two-way defender who can definitely put up some good numbers. He had 13 goals last year, a total of 37 points, and now moving into next year, I don't really think there's going to be as much pressure on him to do great things. They brought in a veteran like Anton Stralman. He has Sergei Bobrovsky behind him right now. I think Aaron Ekblad is going to have a really good year, so I'm going to go out and say this is a fair contract for him. This next comment comes from Dineth Altmann, who says Matt Dumba, and Dumba is under contract with a $6 million cap hit through the 2022-23 season, and in my opinion, this is a steal. I think he's underpaid. He was a 50-point guy in the 2017-18 season, was a plus 15, and this past season, had he not gotten hurt, I think he would have been up there as one of the leading defenseman scorers. He already had 22 points in 32 games and already had 12 goals in 32 games as a defenseman. He could have been pushing like 20 to 25 goals had he had stayed healthy this past season. I think Matthew Dumba is a horse on the blue line for Minnesota, and definitely them having him locked up long term on only a $6 million contract is a very good thing. And again, I point to some other defensemen around the league and what kind of contracts they've been given. I think this is a very good deal for Matt Dumba. Next up, we have a comment from Montreal Canadiens Highlights who says Gallagher, and Brendan Gallagher is under contract through the 2020-21 season. He will then become a UFA, and his cap hit is only $3.75 million, and Brendan Gallagher is extremely underpaid. He was a back-to-back 30-goal scorer the past two seasons, 52 points this past year, 54 points in the 2017-18 season, but for Brendan Gallagher, he brings much more to the game than just his point totals and his scoring. He is a heart and soul guy. He's probably very tough to play against. He's an agitator, and he's definitely a guy you want to go to war with on a night in, night out basis. He's one of the more underrated wingers in the league, in my opinion, and Brendan Gallagher is severely underpaid, and I think at the end of the 2020-2021 season, he's definitely going to be in for a pretty big raise. Moving along to the next comment, this one comes from Chungus Productions, who says Andrew Shaw, 3.9 mil, 3 years left, and honestly, I think this is a fair deal. Some people might say he's slightly overpaid, but again, he's another guy who brings a lot more to the game than just his scoring and his point totals, and last year, he actually scored well and put up decent points. 47 points for him in 63 games. That was his best points per game total of his entire career. If he had stayed healthy, would have been like a 20-goal scorer and a 50-point guy, and I definitely think he is going to be a big part for Chicago next year, and I'm sure they're very happy to have him back, and at that $3.9 million cap hit, I definitely don't really see it being a problem, especially considering he brings a lot more to the game than just scoring and points, like I said before. Next comment comes from Samir Raza, who says Bo Horvat, and Bo Horvat is under contract at a cap hit of $5.5 million through the 2022-23 season. He will then, at the end of that, become a UFA, but Bo Horvat is yet another player who brings a lot more to the game than just his numbers suggest. He's a very good leader already at just the young age of 24 years old. He's most likely the future captain of this Vancouver Canucks team. I don't know why they haven't just named him captain already, and he seemingly just gets better every single year. He just had 61 points, 27 goals, a breakout year for him, and that $5.5 million cap hit, I definitely think that is a little bit of an underpayment. He should probably be making around $6.5, maybe even $7 million if he continues to get better. Bo Horvat, definitely an underrated player and a big part of this Vancouver team. And now, finishing out the video with a comment from Frankie MacDonald, who says Tyler Myers, 5 years, $6 million, and honestly, I think maybe it's a slight overpayment. 5 to 5.5 probably would have been a little bit better than the $6 million cap hit that he has, but but I don't blame Vancouver for signing him whatsoever. They needed to improve that blue line, and Tyler Myers isn't a guy who's going to come in and put up big numbers. 31 points last year, 36 in the 2017-18 season, but he is definitely a player you can throw out there against the opposition's top line and expect him to do a relatively solid job. And I know Canucks fans were pretty upset with this contract, but just wait until you see him on the ice. I really don't see it being that bad. So I'm going to say slightly overpaid, but again, I don't really see it as that bad. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section what your picks for all these players would be, and if you have any series ideas or video suggestions whatsoever, make sure to let me know down in the comment section. And thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel lately. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like on it, and please subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.